Hello. This is the President's Post. I'm Lenore Borner, the president of the MNMAA Alumni Association. As officers and board members, I'm here to wish you all, on behalf of the board members, a happy new year, the best in 2022. Now, today's post is going to refer back to my previous President's Post related to my meeting with Dr. Mason. Her assistant, Tula Ramey, set up this meeting with myself and Lisa Hubble, the vice president of the Alumni Association. And we, the Alumni Association, hired a sign language interpreter so that we could have access to that meeting. And I'm going to expand on what happened at that meeting today because my goal is 100% transparency with the members. I want to be transparent with the community, parents of deaf children, employees, former employees, students, the general deaf community. All the stakeholders should have access to what we have to say. We also have our fans out there. I want to let you know some pretty exciting news. For this post, we have added a voice interpretation, which will be in 2 languages, one in Spanish and one in English. We will also produce a transcript of this post in Spanish, as well as closed caption this post, so that any and all stakeholders can have access to what we are saying. For example, parents of deaf children, anybody and everybody. Now, I have 4 different topics I want to cover today, and I will expand on each one of them. I already told you that we were going to talk about that meeting and that the goal here is 100% transparency and 100% accessibility to my posts. Now, the second topic is, as I mentioned in my previous post, we had a meeting with Dr. Mason. Now, you know Dr. Portia. This interpreter's not sure she's pronouncing that name right. Now, you know, they hired Dr. Portia as the principal because the previous superintendent had retired, or then the previous superintendent retired. So we were wondering, who would be the new superintendent? What's the interview process going to look like? Are they going to advertise this position? But we didn't hear anything. Instead, MNMAA picked Dr. Portia to become what they called a building principal, which with the same responsibilities as a superintendent or an executive director. And basically, he covers the whole schools, all the schools. So we discussed this at the meeting. Now, they recently announced that effective January 1st of 2022, Dr. Portia's title will change yet again. He's now the executive director of MNMAA. So that title we were just told at our meeting in December is out the window, and we don't know why. It seems like a lot of changes made very quickly. Pardon me while I refer to my notes. That really shocked us when that news was announced, because we had just had this meeting where she explained what his title was, and then they announced effective January 1st, it would have a different title. It didn't seem that Dr. Mason's was consistent, what she said in the meeting and then what the announcement that we just recently got. So when that meeting was over, we had not finished the agenda that the Alumni Association wanted us to cover. We had several items left on our agenda. So the idea was, let's set up a new meeting so we can cover everything. And we agreed with Dr. Mason to set that meeting up. So I emailed Tula Ramey, the secretary, Dr. Mason's secretary, shortly after the meeting and said, hey, when is the next meeting? What date can we set up? And by the way, in that same email, I made a request because back at the beginning of the meeting that we had with Dr. Mason, I asked for a copy of the recording of the Zoom meeting because I wanted it from my notes. And I think it relates to my goal of 100% transparency. And Dr. Mason agreed that she would make available a link to the recording. So in my email about the next meeting to Tula, I asked for the link. A week went by, so I emailed her again. And I CC'd Dr. Mason, as well as Lisa Hubble, the Alumni Association's vice president. I heard nothing. Nothing about the date and nothing about the Zoom link. So I emailed yet again. This time, I got a response from Dr. Mason and said, talk to Chris Otto, she said. He's the outreach coordinator from the outreach department. So to me, that was like going back to square one. At the beginning, if you remember, I asked to talk to Dr. Mason and was referred to Chris Otto. And I said, no, I want to talk to you. I want to have ongoing meetings with you. And here now, after I've had one, I'm referred back to Chris Otto. And I don't want to talk to anyone but Dr. Mason because I want to finish the business that I set out to talk to her about in the first place. And my communication to her was very clear. So I'm wondering why. So I asked for that Zoom recording and they're not giving it to me. They're refusing to give it to me. And I was like, wow, you're not going to give me that link? No matter how many times I've asked? So I've yet to receive a date for the second meeting or the recording of the first meeting. So we call that transparency? Where's the honesty in this communication? Why are we being treated this way? 4 emails and I don't get what I'm asked for? Plus, I need to finish the agenda. I need a new date for the second meeting. Now you have to remember, we lost 30 minutes of the first meeting. Dr. Mason didn't show up. Then finally she joined the link. So that's why we didn't get to finish. And I didn't think that was quite fair to start 30 minutes late and not give us a second opportunity. I mean, possibly we would have finished the agenda if she hadn't joined the meeting 30 minutes late. So this is apparently not transparent communication. I'm not sure it's even honest. So I'm going to move on to the next step, which I haven't announced just yet. So let me just move on to my third topic. It also relates to transparency between MNMAA and the Alumni Association. We have made so many efforts to communicate with them through so many ways. They just beat around the bush. They're too vague in their responses. They're not honest with us. They still haven't even responded to my last email for a meeting date and a Zoom link to the recording of the first meeting, despite my multiple efforts. So now I believe Dr. Mason basically rebuked us in our meeting. She wanted to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the Alumni Association. She wanted to tell us what they were. So to me, it's pretty obvious that there's some autism at play here with Millneck Manor, specifically through the actions of Dr. Mason. She doesn't show respect for the Alumni Association. Not the officers, not the board members. Because the only thing we want is what's best for the students, the alumni, and we want the truth. As for my final topic for this President's Post, I'm going to let you know what I'm going to cover in my next post, which will be pretty soon. The topic of that post will be more in-depth information of additional examples of Millneck not being transparent, now related to their finances. So I'm talking about the Millneck Foundation and other financial information that was not publicly made available. However, we were able to get additional financial information that we've been able to study. And we are quite puzzled by what we have found. Two more things I'd like to mention. Millneck students are not a charity. No way. They're there to be educated. That is the whole purpose of the school. It's not a charity. They're not out to raise funds to teach these kids. Millneck is an educational institution, and I'll expand on that concept in my next post. And the other emphasis on my next post will be to let you know some of the information that we found. We happen to find out that 2 former employees are in the process of suing, filing lawsuits against the school. And I'll explain more about that in my next President's Post. Thank you for viewing my President's Post. Happy New Year. Happy 2022.